Presidential primaries used to be fun. Not this time. The Republican road to both Iowa and New Hampshire has been a slog.
If I could have one thing change, I wish Trump hadn't been indicted on any of this stuff.
In an interview with the Christian Broadcasting Network, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis said the Trump indictments had sucked out all the oxygen from the primaries. And who could disagree?
I think that, from Alvin Bragg on, I've criticized the cases. I think, someone like a Bragg would not have brought that case if it was anyone other than Donald Trump.
For all intents, the GOP presidential nomination started to set like wet cement last April when Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg indicted Mr. Trump on 34 counts of falsifying business records.
The fact that the Manhattan DA thinks that indicting President Trump is his top priority, I think, just tells you everything you need to know about the radical left in this country.
Back then, Mr. Trump's support for the Republican nomination stood at 45%, a reasonable number for a former president, but a level of support that at least made the party's nomination contestable. But with each new Trump indictment and court hearing, the GOP primary competition lost oxygen.
The poll numbers are scary because we're leading by so much.
Following a year of endless litigation, Trump's support for the nomination sits today around 60%.
What you thought might be kryptonite for him has turned out to be battery packs.
If you are a committed Democrat making an unemotional calculation about which Republican you would want to risk winning the presidential contest next year, it's Donald Trump. With this in mind, Ron DeSantis was right to remind voters that to get the job done requires a two-term presidency.
He would be a lame duck on day one if he could even get elected. I think he'd have major problems with personnel.
Okay.
And of course, he didn't deliver on his core promises to drain the swamp, to have Mexico pay for the border wall, or to eliminate the debt. He added $7.8 trillion.
Mr. Trump himself seemed to admit as much when he said last month he would not be a dictator, except on day one.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border, and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
What he meant was that he would spend his first day or week issuing executive orders. The problem is executive orders are reversible, as Mr. Biden proved by ostentatiously overturning one Trump order after another.
It's not about loyalty to Trump, but there was this idea that there was a lot of unfinished business in 2020, plus a weaponization of government, and to stand in solidarity with him.
If in fact reviving the Trump policies are really the Republican electorate's goal, they'd vote for Ron DeSantis.
I've delivered on America First principles more than any other elected Republican in the country. If you look across the board of what we did in Florida, 100% of what I promised we would do, we delivered.
Alternatively, if the GOP electorate wanted to expand the party's base into an enduring 8-year coalition, they'd vote for Nikki Haley, an appealing proposition for independents put off by how far left the Democratic Party has moved on crime, the border, and Israel.
You don't respond to an enemy and a terrorist with fear. You respond with strength.
An expanded GOP base would ensure control of the House and win the Senate. Legislated goals outlive executive orders.
If Trump is once again sucking up the oxygen, getting all of the media coverage from that trial going into Super Tuesday, I can't see how that necessarily hurts him.
Voters in the early Republican primaries also need to consider the implications for their goals of a third-party candidacy. If the protest vote reaches 30% this time, that would mean the 2024 winner will be seen as lacking a mandate.
Trump is not the guy, neither is Biden. The independent voter in New Hampshire is going to be a big wake-up call for the entire country.
With a Haley or DeSantis nomination, the third-party problem vanishes, the unavoidable Biden liabilities magnify, and GOP voters get a shot at 8 years in power. A vote for the presidency comes only every 4 years. It's a precious thing to waste.